Prisoner 95763, step forward to be intestinated.
You have nothing. You are
Christopher Lambert, Fortress.
I've been friends with Mike for about 15 years. What do we have in common? Well, you know what? The first thing is we both like to eat.
My name is Mike Hall, and over the last 40 years, against better judgment,
I can see Rust Valley Restorers over your shoulder. So whenever you get into any kind of like long explanation of something, I'll just be like, yeah.
That was a good break. Much needed.
Word from our sponsors, Alamo Credit.
It was nice when we were trying to watch Fortress last night, but you refused to give Fubo TV money.
$65 a month.
It's way too much money to pay a month for anything.
I think it seems like one of those things where you get it and they know you're only going to, well, they're hoping you'll forget about the payment, but they'll at least get $65 from you.
At least once,
you know. And it's, I mean, what is it to host like shitty movies? You know, nothing.
You get an AWS server or whatever. That's like calling it an ATM machine. But anyway, you refusing, like, there's always the free website, some Russian, you know, JW Flash player that will host for whatever reason, because Fortress was big in Australia and Europe. And they're like, what? Oi, what's that movie I used to watch as a wee lad? Mm-hmm. But you found it on Crackle via Plex, except the ad, because your ad blocker is broken.
Well, it hasn't been updated in years. Like, I updated it in 4 years. 2018 is the last time ad blocker was updated.
Okay.
So ads have gotten smarter.
Right, but the ads, so the movie would pause, but the ad audio would play, but it couldn't load up more than one. And then once we disabled ad blocker, found out, oh, they're playing 7 ads per commercial break.
Well, there's this great part in Fortress where like Christopher Lambert caused this this fight with the main rapist guy.
Yeah,
and
187 guy.
Yeah, and then who's the guy from like Mad Max and Commando and all this stuff.
Right.
And
who I thought was Meatloaf.
Yeah, but he's the Australian dude. That makes sense. Right. But anyway, so they get put in solitary confinement, which is just those laser beam like cages. And I thought that because they started playing this ad underneath it for like this, I don't even know. It was some like insurance thing or something where someone was getting into an accident and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, this is where they do the psychological thing to him, where they play all these voices in his head and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then after we'd watched it for like 20 or 30 seconds, I was like, I don't think this is part of the movie.
No.
And then it happened like that throughout the whole fucking movie. You know, where it'd be some critical scene where it's like, and I am going to take control of your baby when it's born. And then, it would be like, saving money on car insurance? Like, God damn it.
Yeah, but then it also plays local ads, which is weird. Like, Austin car dealership, best in town, but no audio. Or just be some guy painting. Like, Aaron, buy paint.
And it'd be over Red's, like, stern face, you know, as he's, like, staring at you.
I read the actor's name, like, 6 times last night, and I've already forgot it.
He's just Red.
He's Red, yeah. Or RoboCop guy.
Yeah, it's better Red, because he's in control of a prison full of dumbasses, you know.
I'm glad we watched Fortress because you talked about how Fortress inspired a chapter in Rook, and then I never thought about it again until I bought you a German poster for Christmas. And you're like, this is so great, thank you. And I can see it rolled up right there in a corner.
Well, I gotta get framed so it doesn't get destroyed in my garage by like welding materials, and like I already set myself on fire once. Like, imagine if there's some flammable paper sitting around there.
On the poster, he has a grid on his face, and I realized that's when they're scanning his dreams. Mm-hmm. When they're like, "Don't dream."
It's so funny. Like
that's weird advice, right?
It's the black dude from Demolition Man who's like John Spartan, like his old friend or whatever.
Maybe.
Like, he's in those kind of like 80s movies as like the wise black man character.
He's the only really good actor in that in Fortress.
Oh yeah, he's the only good. He's like the only real kind of actor. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure like he seems like one of those actors who was like a famous actor in the 60s or 50s or something, and they're like, we got to get so and so back because he's great. But anyway, again, as like the wise black character in a story or whatever. He's like
somewhat wise, because he's like 3 more days till parole, and they're like, well, you stole the crystal, this is really going to hurt your parole chances.
Or you didn't dust this thing
right
here, or you didn't make breakfast right.
There was something I was reading. I'm reading this book right now.
Damn it, we went off the dream tangent.
No, I will come back to
Okay.
Dream. I'm reading this book, Wizard of Oz and Other Narcissists, and they talk about a lot of times people are in two types of relationships, either growing up or in a. So I'm trying not to sneeze because I'm allergic to dogs, but I love them so much. You can either be a Rapunzel or a Cinderella, and those are like two of the relatable kind of childhoods or stories they use where like a lot of people relate to this, where the Rapunzel type is someone who's locked away and they're sheltered from the world, but the parental figure in their life sort of like gives and takes all the love from that person. But then there's the Cinderella, which is more like our janitor friend, our trustee
That's what
from
I thought
Fortress.
of when I saw it. I was like, Cinderella,
It's
man.
very Cinderella, not Cinderella man, Cinderella,
Person.
comma, man,
Okay.
no person. But the Cinderella type, which is something I relate to, more of the like, oh, sure, you can go out if you clean the whole house. I cleaned the whole house. Well, it wasn't good enough. So now you're double punished. And it's just like that to me felt like a lot of my life growing up. I'm like, I relate more to the trustee than anyone else in Fortress, because everyone else is kind of selfish.
Is that his name, the trustee?
He just calls him a trustee, which I mean,
I thought they're all trustees because that's like,
no. Trustees are the guys who like
get to work in Red's apartment.
they're the ones who you trust over time. Like in a prison, they're the guys who wash the car.
I'm going to put in a good word for you in the parole board, dumbass.
Yeah, except he doesn't leave because he's hooked up with wires. Like most people who work in jails, they're connected by SCSI ports and weird PCI ports. And it's like, the prison feeds me.
I like how it was before anyone knew what amino acids was. So when Red goes like, I'm getting amino acids so I don't have to eat, everyone's like, oh man, that is the future. It's like he's getting like gel, like Gatorade gel.
Yeah, he's not wrong. Well, there's the part too at the end when the guy from Reanimator, Frighteners, D-Day, the character with the
Coke bottle glasses.
yeah, big glasses, and he has his Twilight Zone moment when he's like, I'm blind as a bat. Like, it found out the movie takes place in the distant year of 2017.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
What? But did they mention that ever in the movie?
No, I just read the IMDb trivia, and I think in France they call the movie like Le Jail 2013, even though it takes place in 2017. They're like, we don't le care.
Really?
Yeah, who gives le fuck is what their thoughts are. But huge everywhere else other than America. Just a big movie overseas.
That movie, I mean, it inspired like some stuff in Rook, but my brother Lynn and I watched it as kids, and it scared the shit out of us. I think that's the purpose of those kind of movies.
Yeah.
It's like, look what could happen to you if you like. Yeah, it's supposed to be commentary on like, oh, this is such a dystopian nightmare. Don't break the law, or else we'll put the fucking little explosive electric balls in your stomach, the intestinators, and we'll give you fucking horrible diarrhea every time you do something wrong. Like, it's supposed to keep people in real life in line. I think. Like, as a kid, Lynn and I were like, I was like, I can't do anything bad. I'm never gonna have a second child, or whatever they get punished for, and I'm not gonna do anything bad.
There's a lot of weird rules, like overtly Christian laws, where like it is like a mix of Chinese. So I guess that makes it pretty futuristic. It's like Chinese and like hardcore American Puritan laws, where you can't have a second child, but if you do, abortions are illegal. They can only kill the mother. Or something like that.
Well, yeah, something like they kill the mother, and then I don't know how they made this leap, but then they turn the babies into like cyborg things.
They're the future.
The amino acid eaters, like Red.
But then the clone troopers come out or whatever, and
they're Borgs.
They can't shoot for shit. For some reason they don't have lower jaws, and one shot to the leg and they're done.
But those I think those are supposed to be babies too.
That's what I thought. Is like. There they are, the perfect soldiers, except they die so fast.
Well, and also, like, if Red is in his 50s in that, right?
He's always in his 50s.
So it's supposed to take place in 2017.
Yeah.
but they turned him into. He was originally a baby, and then they made him into
he's the perfect being that watches porno dreams.
And his receding hairline. All this is like the best they can make. Like the best they can make is red.
Yeah.
Or he says he's an earlier model or something. It's not clear. There's all these fucking Deus Ex Machina moments that are like, oh, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Like they get that little crystal thing, and Christopher Lambert's like, of course we go through here, and like just everything. They just kind of drag you along. They're like, just come through here. Mm-hmm. But like going back to. I mean, it was such like a scare. Even the crimes to keep you in line. Even the crimes in the beginning, like you know that there's like that squirrely man in the beginning. That's like the accountant type. He's going away for 2 months for some tax stuff or something like that.
Yeah, he skateboarded at the wrong public park or something.
Yeah, and then the vaguely Hispanic dude that's the main character, and it's like he'll never survive in here, man. Like. And sure enough, he does. But like the types of crimes that they explain, they're very much to scare you. Like, oh, that's 2 months for tax evasion.
Yeah,
he's going to get intestinated.
I would say it is actually pretty close to like kind of China. I don't know enough about China than what my government tells me through media.
It is
kind of. It was like because you're hitting on something kind of interesting there. They're talking about like. When we were talking about Rook, I remember because you were talking, you're like, the balls in the stomach. And I'm like, you mean the neck braces from Wedlock? And we're like, no, I'm talking about the giant bubble that kills the guy from Prisoner. It's like.
We're such fucking weeb dorks.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, maybe there's a collective consciousness that people know that prisons just aren't good enough. So we need electric boots that keep people in place. But what is that mindset of we need to creatively keep people in line, that it just a guy with a gun isn't good enough anymore? We need to have some sort of like cattle prod system or like a sluice where you trap the person's head and then make them suck off a ball robot. Like
Christopher Lambert opened up pretty quick. He was like, oh.
Yeah. No,
there was no choking when they put that entire little ball.
It was
down
a smooth
there.
ride. Yeah, they should have said like, "Well done." Like it's weird too when they explain. They're like, I don't know why you would need to explain to the prisoner that you're putting a ball. I guess they do it in other movies too, like Suicide Squad. Where like, we've put this thing in your neck. It goes right here. We'll tell you where it is. So it's like, now you just get. Why is it a magnet to pull?
It would have been cooler if they like squirted this thing of lube down his throat first and like
they just put him on some silk sheets.
Yeah, and the ball was like it was the end ball of like a anal bead string. They're like we start with the small ones and then we put the intestinator down.
I didn't mean to talk about Fortress the whole time because I don't want to just do a movie podcast. I was just talking about how it influenced me and like tried to scare me. And it did, because I was like, it kept me, in line. Because that's what those movies always do. It's some commentary like, isn't this crazy? This is weird, but you wouldn't want it to happen to you. Well, there's also the thing too, because we also watched Highlander, and it's like my childhood memory had a much better memory of it. And you watch it now through a modern lens and go, I guess my bar was much lower as a kid. Like I remember the acting being better. I remember it moving a lot quicker. I remember things a lot differently. And yeah, it's sort of like you're at the whim of what your parents give you. So like I got RoboCop, Princess Bride, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And it's like, these are good mixes, except Ferris Bueller's Day Off I thought was a horror film because I would just kind of tune in on the scenes where the synthesizer's playing the snoring sounds and it sounds like a monster. And I was freaking out as a kid, and then I see Ed Rooney.
You sound like a dumb kid.
I was like 3 years old. Like
dumb 3-year-old kid.
Bouncing between Care Bears and the Brady Bunch. Like, you don't know what's good or bad. Like, I watched that and some Croatian film about a fox, and I thought that was a Disney film, but it's not.
I was thinking while you were talking about that just now, and I was watching Rust Valley Restores.
Yeah.
I was thinking what you're saying about China, though, and the Uyghurs. Like...
Uyghurs.
Yeah, the Uyghurs. What did I say?
Uyghurs.
Wait, isn't Uyghurs?
Uyghurs.
Uyghurs?
Uyghurs.
Okay. I didn't purposely try and mispronounce. I know, you're
from Texas.
Uyghurs.
So yeah. You're like, I saw 8 Mile.
The Uyghurs, it's similar things to Fortress. Like they're reprogramming their brains. Like they don't put them in the fucking gyroscope like they did Christopher Lambert or anything, but they do similar. Like it's the Chinese version of Red, basically over a loudspeaker, going like, "You are all dumbasses, and your religion is wrong." And like it's the same kind of like inescapable like. I guess the way they hold them there is like, oh, if you escape, then we'll just find your family. And
and they'll be in the cell above you.
Yeah, we'll intestinate your family if you escape.
I will say though, because the movie came out in '92, and I think it was. I'm giving it more credit than I probably should, but the fact that it was a commentary on privatized prisons and overcrowding.
I guess it is.
Well, because they go out of it sounds like the Mattel Corporation.
Right.
It's like Mantel, and when they get in there, they immediately shove the new, prisoners in the laser. It's way too expensive of a prison of what they're doing. But there was a part of me of like, oh, they're kind of talking about overcrowding in prisons, and then they're making them dig to like make the prison bigger, which is instead of going wider, they're just going down.
Was there a part in Fortress where they're selling the children? Or, well, it's run by Mattel Corporation, Mantel, whatever. And so I guess there's the profit element of it is they're expanding the prison. They're not like digging for minerals or anything, right? They never say.
They never talk about that. Yeah.
But the children aspect, though, I think that's what Mattel's going to sell, or the robot people.
It's unclear. I like it. Like I said, I think it was probably a little too ahead of its time, where they're like, there's a bunch of ideas that just were kind of coming together, and what we got was a fever dream of balls and throats and kind of redeemable characters, then kind of give up at the last minute. But I think overall, I just want to say thank you for sharing your childhood.
You're
with
welcome.
me.
That was it affected me. I'd have dreams about that all the time. I was in an inescapable prison with an invisible force, and if I crossed a yellow line, it gave me awful diarrhea, and if I crossed the red line, it gave me like Texas chili parlor diarrhea. Like it's the same look. It's the same spatter pattern on the wall.
Yeah, a lot of body horror in the 80s and 90s. That's kind of like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Like the what's his face? The Fly kind of people. What's that?
Cronenberg?
Yeah, the Cronenberg like syndrome of like the body is probably one of the scariest things you could do. All you need to do is add a few lumps and you start to really second guess everything. Because I don't know, one day you're just restoring a car up in Canada, next day you get bit by a spider and your eyes closed, and it's the scariest fucking thing ever.
You've slowly been seeing the things that shaped my life. The Fortresses and the Rust Valley Restorers and
that's more recent though.
Yeah. Well,
I
shaped the last 2 years of my life.
Oh, sorry. I am starting to understand, because I'm starting to understand your mind a little bit more. That you showed me the show. You showed us a show on Netflix, Rust Valley. Of it. I've never done meth, but I feel like I have now watching this show, where it's nonstop. It's these guys who run a yard, and it's just there is a passion behind it though. Like I sort of understand, while you're trying to restore a car in your garage, like you're doing it on probably a more sensible scale.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make a business out of my VW in the garage.
I don't know. You see that though, the exploitation factor.
You hear Riggs drinking?
He was drinking out of the toilet earlier.
What?
I heard something splashing. I walked by. He was in the bathroom. He looked back at me, and I was like, "Where are you?" And he was like, "I won't say anything if you won't say anything." I was like, "That's
why I keep that toilet closed, not to teach him bad habits."
Well, I am not in any way deputized to talk about this or.
Interesting. Now I'm waking up.
I was talking to somebody a while ago who they're younger. They were 10 years younger than me. Like I'm 36, coming up on 37. Just kind of relating to like your childhood, where it's like we just sort of watch whatever our parents gave us. So it's like, here's Fortress, watch it. Here's Death Becomes Zero. Here's Dead Ringers, figure it out. And you're like, okay, I guess it's, they don't know any better. So We get these sorts of things, but they were telling me how like, oh, your references are just out of this world. Like it's so, how do you come up with this stuff so quickly? And I'm like, that's just how I was raised. But I realized there was that kind of weird 10-year gap where we weren't raised by the internet, where information wasn't coming so quickly. It was like you had time for things to marinate and shape who you are. And like I said, I'm not equipped to talk about this, but I'm more just an observer of like, what is this going to look like, where we've talked about like the snake getting tighter and tighter, eating its own tail, where the 90s are coming back quicker and ending quicker, and we're just reliving decades and recycling things so quickly, when it's like, what does that look like? Like, is that like,
what is like the new creative, or what is the new ideas?
Yeah. It's like, it's almost like the eradication of culture, because I don't know how you make a fortress today. I don't know how you pitch that, unless, I mean, you could make Fortress because it has a brand and you can point to something and someone go, oh, I know what that is.
We can sell intestinators.
Yeah. I mean, there was a recent Fortress that came out because it was making it hard for us to search for the movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're like, no, not Fortress 2021, Fortress 1992. And, you know, with just recently Scream came out, and they're doing that thing now where movies or books or things are getting released and it's just the same name. It's not called a sequel. It's called like a requel. You know, it's like The Force Awakens.
Yeah, you told me that word. And
I don't like it. It's not sticking with me. Some blog said it. And
it's a stupid word.
It's like, how can we remake a movie, but then also like it's a passing of the torch situation where like, we'll get some of the original cast, you know, we'll get David Arquette. And it's like, I guess that's a win.
It depresses me, those things. Like it ruins any of the good memories it immediately taints everything.
Well, that's what the new Ghostbusters was and everything. Like, that's what I'm saying though. It's the erosion of culture. It's the erosion of, it's just, we're not celebrating new ideas because they're scary, or I have no context for what this is, so I don't want to look at it, you know?
Yeah.
But then that's how you, in a weird way, then that's what we celebrate, or that's what we reward, when it's like, you know, but it's a risk. And so getting those things made is like so much harder. I'm saying nothing.
You're just like, I hate prequels and sequels and requels. And
I mean, it's not even hate. I don't think I have a strong feeling towards this stuff. I'm just apathetic.
That's probably the worst thing though, because it just deadens you don't get excited to creative. I don't know.
10 years ago, if you told me the guy who made The Faculty and Desperado is going to make a Boba Fett show, I'd be like, sign me up. And just like my heart rate only goes up a little bit. So I can't imagine I'm alone. I mean, it's like, I'm not jaded. I'm not like, I fucking hate Star Wars. And I'm just tired. I'm just overwhelmed. And I don't know if I can, like, I don't know if even the digital water cooler is a thing anymore. It's just, I don't know. It's like, oh, I guess I'll watch stuff when I get to it, but I'm just exhausted by the same thing repeating itself. Like, I don't know, but that's just, I guess, the way it is.
But I mean, there's always been that there's been remakes since the 60s, 50s, 60s.
Was it A Star Is Born has like been remade 572 times?
Yeah, or like
just 3.
I'm trying to think. I mean, you know, think of any zombie movie, but whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not saying remakes are bad or necessarily like evil or whatever, but like when everything is that, or everything is a adaptation of something else, like it seems like doing anything new is sort of frowned upon, or it's not frowned upon. It's just, it's deemed risky because everything needs to be a 0 or a 10, you know, everything's a Yelp review. That's what it feels like. It's just, things are so much more polarizing.
I wonder if it's just like old man talk, if there is some like, I don't know how you'd be able to prove it, but some thing you could point to where there's an actual trend of just following trends. Like that's how you're taught to succeed, like in business school or something, or marketing or whatever. Like that's a school of thought, like as opposed to trying to come up with, you know, new, innovative, creative, or whatever the case, or just like something with voice. Like they teach the school of thought of here's how to harness a trend for your own brand or for a company's brand. Like, cause that's all this, I hear that shit all the time of like, this is the trends, like get on top of the trends, follow the trends, as opposed to like, I don't know if maybe there's a generational thing that's going to happen now where it's where people are taught like, here's how you harness what's already got momentum, if that makes sense.
Kind of. My brain goes to TikTok and,
well, I know it goes to, like,
it goes to those things where like, that is the old man, old person, old timer, grandfather. What can I say?
Yeah.
I don't know. But that we talked about this a while ago, but like, yeah, I had some guy had a freelance gig and I was like, yeah, I'll do your TikTok shit, whatever. He's like, this is not what I was looking for. And I'm like, I don't think it was what I was looking for either. Yeah. Cause I don't really care for this content, this sort of stuff. And I guess that makes me wrong. Maybe. No, I mean, there's no wrong or right in terms of like, I guess creative, right? It's what's popular, what isn't. I don't know. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of bite size bits, like those, just those little quick digestible, like, I think those are fun to look at here and there, but like that seems to be where it's all going. Like the attention span is just getting smaller and smaller, but then at the same time movies are getting longer and longer. It's hard to tell where there's no middle anymore. There's no hour-and-a-half Fortress being made.
How long that movie felt like it was 800 hours.
It was
long.
The ads because it was,
yeah. For all the A+ credit union and all that stuff. Yeah, man, I don't know. Like, I feel like my mind is mush right now as far as like it's like it's treading old ground of like, I don't understand the technology, and it's like there's something to say about it that I almost want to say, like going back to like the 90s coming back or whatever the case, like the fashion trends and stuff like that. It would be interesting if there was that, not only like the fashion trends or whatever and the music and all that stuff, but it was like a complete shutting off of I don't know, technology, like trying to live how it was when you didn't have access to everything, like some like technological revolt by kids who just want to like completely be offline. I don't know.
I don't see that happening when big theme park initiatives are being put in mind with that everyone has a $900 phone in their pocket. Some things are just assumed, Well,
like can you talk about this? The Star Wars thing.
I was just saying, just anything you do these days, or it's like, we went to an art show thing where they're like, yeah, just download this 700 megabyte app, and then you just, it's called iJack, and then you look at the art, and the art will like melt on the wall. It's really cool. And it's like, well, what if I had a flip phone? He's like, why would you have a flip phone? That sort of thing.
Someone sent me the fucking why was I saying Mozart? The fucking okay. Someone sent me the Van Gogh exhibit that's like projected everywhere, and it basically just looks like a fucking mushroom fever dream.
It is,
or whatever. And I haven't been to it, but I've seen like Van Gogh stuff, like the actual Starry Night in person and all that. It's a lucky thing to be able to go do or whatever. But I've seen that shit, and you go and look at it, and the colors are better than you've ever seen in any print. And you also see like the canvas sticking out through it. Like that's what the brown is in the paint. It's the canvas and all that stuff. And I was just looking at it, and I was like, this is, I don't know, because it's so simple and distilled into, I mean, its original form. It's more interesting. You could spend a day looking at the Starry Night or whatever, Cafe in Paris or whatever. You could just look and see like strokes and texture and all that stuff. But when I go into an exhibit like that where it's blasted on the ceiling and on the walls and stuff, you're like, wow. All right, next room. And you're like,
well, the thing is, it's 3 rooms and it's the same projection in each one, but it is kind of a different experience. It was unique. I did it.
You're ruining my perception.
Sorry. Well, because first you go, it's like you walk through. I didn't know what it was. It was just like Van Gogh, come, Van Gogh to the museum, and I think it also it's Amoeba Records, but it's carved out, you know, Amoeba, the original Amoeba's gone now.
What is that?
Amoeba Records, old Hollywood record studio thing's been moved. It's somewhere else on like Hollywood and Vine now or something, which is like, I haven't been inside the new one, but I guess kind of takes away from it. But that's an old.
Was it famous or something?
Yeah, really. You didn't know Amoeba?
Did they make records? Did they
Sell
produce
records,
it?
sell records and DVDs and stuff. It's
Did
just
John Cusack work there?
briefly
Okay.
last year.
Yeah.
He was between gigs. It's a Hollywood staple. It's like Pink's hot dogs. You know, there's nothing really special about it. It's, you know, because there's a line. It's popular because it's popular, that sort of thing. But I mean, I've bought some weird, you know, anime from Amoeba back in like the early 2000s when stuff wasn't streaming online. You know, it's like that was kind of the place to go. Either way, now it's a museum or it's a show space. But you walk. I didn't know what it was, but you walk in and it is someone spent a lot of times a long time in After Effects doing some really good art, and like my brain was looking at it and being like, okay, I can see where they cropped art out and then what they did with it and how they like magnified it and how they thought about it in a 3D space of, okay, how can we project it on the ceiling, the wall, the floor, everything. Mm-hmm. And it's like a 15-minute video that plays, and like there's some Thom Yorke in there and some like adagio for strings, or like it's just like a mix of music. And then you go into another room and the video plays again, but now it's like, now sit on the floor and look up and see it from a different perspective. It's like I wasn't high, but I felt high. Like it was that sort of thing.
That's the best kind of high.
It was pretty cool. Like I would say it was an experience. And then we were, you know, reading Van Gogh trivia and learning about the man and the myth.
Figuring out where you're going to eat lunch afterwards.
Dinner. We had already,
Yeah.
we went to Pink's, stuffed ourselves. It was the same bench Orson Welles overdid it on.
Really?
I think that was the myth about Orson Welles, was like he went to Pink's hot dogs and ate something like 52 hot dogs in one sitting.
Jesus Christ.
It was shortly after his Transformers recording. Mm-hmm. He was like, I play a planet. And like,
you are a planet.
The hot dogs are orbiting you, Orson. Jeez. That came up recently too. I forget the actor director guy. He's in a few things. Most recently, like It Chapter 2. I'm blanking on the guy, but they did that documentary about Orson Welles recently. That like last movie he made that didn't get made.
Are you talking about the documentary that's about the making of the movie?
It was him making that movie, but he was
okay,
yeah, but he was calling in every favor, and there was this like bright-eyed actor, up-and-coming director. He ended up obviously doing I think his name's Sidney something. I can't remember. That doesn't matter. He died recently, but I just remember him coming
Peter
up.
Bogdanovich, you mean?
Was that him?
What are you...
Go ahead, look it up.
I don't know what's going on here.
In the documentary, there's the great part where he's like, Orson Welles is just this amazing director, but he was really just taking advantage of people.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was like, oh my God, this guy made Citizen Kane. Except he walks around with a robe with his cock hanging out, eating everyone's popsicles.
That's my dream, man.
That
like,
you want to be that?
Well, it's kind of the Orson Welles, Rodney Dangerfield. Like, you wear the robe with your balls out and you just don't care anymore. You know, just my mind. I had too much shitty mezcal last night.
And you didn't have to do that. I guess kind of bringing it full circle, the whole idea of you idolize someone and then an Orson Welles type, you're like, oh my God, you've influenced my whole life. And they're like, you got a car, right? It's just this kind of sad version of somebody, but you hold them up so high. You know, it's like rewatching Fortress and thinking like, oh, this was the greatest movie growing up and it really scared me. You watch it today and go, well, it's kind of garbage, but it's good garbage. It's creative garbage.
Fortress, I thought, still held up because, like,
better than from what you described. I don't know. There's parts of it that felt really cheap, but
well, you told me you were like, because you were reading trivia, you're like, yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger was originally supposed to be part of it. Man, if he was originally part of it, like, then I wouldn't feel so bad for liking that movie. But then you have Christopher Lambert, like. It's the difference between some great Arnold one-liner and then just Christopher Lambert going, you know, like that's their range of acting.
I don't know. I think that's also a dangerous place to be. You see that a lot where they go, did you, oh, man, did you know James Cameron was going to make a Spider-Man movie and it would have been the best thing ever? It's like, just make it, do it. Let's show me. Because otherwise it's just your imagination running wild and going like, could you imagine? It's like, yes, that's the easy part, is dreaming it. The actual sitting down and making it and then executing on it.
What it inevitably ends up becoming is this studio garbage that you're like, God, and James Cameron was a part of it. Who knew that would be,
Yeah. They're like, did you know, like, Will Smith would have been Neo? That would have ruined it. Or made it the best film of all time. I don't know. Like,
it would have been fresh.
Yeah, I think that's, it's having FOMO for something that never would have existed. It's just planting a seed in your mind of like, oh, you like that thing? Well, did you know it was originally going to be better? And they go, and then they just said they wanted to ruin it. And I was like, well, you don't know.
I was just thinking with the James Cameron thing, like if you had said like, oh man, James Cameron was going to make this movie that took place on this magical planet with these huge blue tall people that you could interact with by getting in your own like blue suit and run around, and it's gonna be 3D and all this stuff. But it got canceled. You're like, God, that would have been so fucking awesome. And then you're sitting there watching Dancing with Wolves and on Nubu or whatever, and you're like, this is not good.
Well, it's funny because you talk about that too. Like I remember when that movie was being talked about, they're like, the technology didn't exist. Which recently I've been looking into. How do you film in the Unreal Engine? Like, how do you do what they did with Mandalorian, but on the cheap? Like, that does interest me. The kind of bringing back a rear projection. You know how they do that, right? Are you aware of any of this? No.
What?
So they do this thing now because LED screens are so insane, and you can basically put a screen behind someone, a TV screen, or you can project, and it's high enough resolution that like can't really tell the difference for most of these things. And now they're just using the Unreal Engine, which is doing photorealistic real-time rendering. You then essentially, the technology that didn't exist for Avatar, which pioneered all this stuff, was you basically put a Vive controller on top of a camera, and it's telling the 3D system
where you're at in the space.
And so that way when you're filming, like I'm filming you, say there's a screen behind you, I'm oversimplifying this, but the camera and the background will parallax together and work in tandem so that when I move, it looks like the background's actually there, as opposed to, the way they used to do it, which is you'd actually project something in the background and, have robots going.
Drive.
People shaking the car. But it's like, it's weird that it's kind of looping back on itself, where I think that's a really good thing because you're taking that green screen technology out of it, which is, and you're being chased by a dinosaur. Go. And they're like, I don't know. Like, pretend. But it's making people feel like they're actually in the environment and you can actually see it. I'm just sort of interested in like, how do you do that on the cheap? How do I do that with a TV in my house and try to do something cool like that? That's essentially what they were doing with Avatar. Was he was like, I want a handheld feeling in this world, but how do I do that? And they dumped all this money into technology where they called it a 3D camera, but with the way things have advanced today, it's like you just it's called a Vive puck. You just put it on top now and you tell the program this is where the camera is, and hopefully you have a computer fast enough to run the Unreal Engine in real time. But yeah, I think that's where one day we will be filming in that environment against our will.
Yeah. There'll be like some 20-year-old that's like, what we need to film is this bikini dance using this Vive puck or whatever, and it's the newest trend, and then they'll make you do it, and then I'll quit like a week later. And that'll be that.
Just hanging in a closet somewhere. But everything's gonna be air conditioned, so it's gonna be fine.
No.
Yeah, you'll like it.
I was just reading something that in the next few years we're gonna have like 8 days of unconditioned air, no air conditioning because of power outages, and
say that again. You're gonna have 8 days of unconditioned air because.
Sorry, my brain was mush when I said it. The article's basically saying 8 days out of the year you will not be able to have air conditioning during hot days because it's like an averages thing.
Okay, gotcha.
They're like, because of power grids, it's like saying It's like when they say, "Oh, well, the temperature on the Earth will go up 1 degree," and you're like, "That doesn't sound so bad." Like 8 days of no air conditioning doesn't sound so bad, but then you realize some average of like, no. For 2 hours out of every day, your power is going to go out.
Right.
You know, I don't know why they don't just say it like that, like where they say like, "Oh yeah, well in Las Vegas it's going to be 155 degrees." And in New England, it's going to be negative 40. And, you know, it's just like some actual numbers instead of like, yeah, it's going to be 76 degrees around the world instead of 75. And that's why you're going to die.
I want to be the guy who scammed the government, who said every year it is estimated that we eat 32 spiders in our sleep. I would like a grant in order to study this phenomenon, and I will give you the actual number of how many spiders we eat.
I know multiple people who do that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're great people and they're extremely smart. And they come up with these findings that there's also a weird thing about that kind of stuff, though, that I found out that you don't have to actually cite your sources in scientific publications, you're supposed to cite your sources, right?
Yeah.
But you rarely are your sources ever checked. Like the whole point of peer review is supposed to be because your peers can review it. But I've learned from doctors and certain collegiate professor people like, no one ever checks
Grifters.
Yeah. My friends, so uncredible.
Well, there's a trend I noticed too, in just online journalism, whatever you want to call it. But it's like here's a story, but I'm feeling this way about it. And like, I'm going to embed a tweet where someone said this. It's like, and that's your source of like, 3 retweets and, 1 reply. And it's like, well, Joe Schmo from, Boise said it. And they're like, you can handpick whatever you want.
It was like this fucking New York Times article was saying, is smoking coming back? And they hung out in front of 3 bars in Brooklyn. I was like, you fucking idiots. Like,
yeah.
God damn. Like, that's why no one takes any of this seriously anymore.
Right.
It's because that kind of stuff. Then you realize, like, my friends and your friends and, people we know, they're the journalists.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're competing with algorithms to put out content that resonates with people, where they're like, oh God, what's something I could, like this woman did a thing and the internet's got her back. And it's like, what is the internet?
Yeah.
It's the 42 people who were like on a Reddit thread and have forgotten about that person already.
I always click on those tweet links where they're like people on social media, and you'll see they'll be like, people have been responding to this post like it's caught like wildfire, and you'll go and it'll have like 100 likes and like a dozen responses.
Yeah. People are losing their minds over this information, and it's someone being like, thumbs up. Neat. We didn't really land on any subject here, but that, I guess, going into the whole thing of polarization scares me, just because it has to be hot or cold. We can't just be okay with stuff anymore. Where in a weird way, that's why NPR is soothing to me. They're just like, crude oil prices are down today. No opinion on it whatsoever. It's just, this is what it is. Moving on. And I go, okay, that kind of brings me to center in some way.
The boringness kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the no glitz or glam. It just is. And not that I necessarily need the news or what.
Sorry, I'll turn this off. It was like getting a vibration. And
well, yeah, when your phone's the size of the monolith that the monkeys are throwing
that's
rocks
how they sold
at.
it on. They're like, it'll be the size of your head.
Yeah,
and
it'll change your DNA slowly over time. And
it's just racing my balls.
we say that, but I think it's more of the mental component it's ruining your balls. It's less about the radiation that emits from it, and we put it, it's in your pocket.
It's just I don't even know. I got. What were you talking about earlier about expectation?
Tempering them, and just the.
Literally, you brought that up as I was watching Rust Valley Restorers, and I'm like, yeah, expectation.
Well, building things in our head that are just untrue, and then being disappointed when they don't happen. There's a great quote out there somewhere of something of just like, I don't know it off the top of my head, but something about like, the only way to be disappointed is to set up an expectation or something like that. Like
That's a great dating profile, like a mission thing.
it's just a shrug.
Yeah.
Me trying to cobble together some information of all the many things I've read. That all blends into one giant mushy thing and ends up being why some guy justifying his job on inverse.com telling me why the second Transformers movie is good. And I'm just like, why am I reading this? What is my problem? Because my sleep is broken. That's what's wrong with me. I got a broken brain.
Maybe that's why we're both broken. Like I was, because I was directing all the heat towards your room,
Yes.
I was suffering from cold. Also, I don't sleep well when I've had, I don't know, 6 margaritas and a few beers.
No, blame the temperature control.
Mostly temperature.
I don't know how this relates to any of it, but I used to do this thing where we'd go to shows, and if someone was acting a certain way, like went to a, like, not really a rave, but went to like a Dead Mouse show, right? And it was like out in a dirt field, and people were really hostile. They're just like very angry. And I was like, no, Dead Mouse fans are kind of assholes. But that's wrong of me. That's me taking, that's the New York Times hanging out in Brooklyn, be like, everyone's smoking.
The anecdotal
it's like,
generalization.
Yeah, what I see outside my window is what I assume a large group of people are doing, which is just never true because there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. And in a time where I think you should be like probably celebrating and recognizing individualism more than ever, things are just more tribal than ever. It's more like, we'll just put it, everyone's doing this. All Democrats do this. All Republicans. It's like, that's never been true. Like, other than all people breathe, and that's mostly true. It's not even 100%. Some of us don't.
Some people don't have heartbeats either. But.
Exactly. Yeah. Nothing's, I guess, 100% true. But we went to a Bjork show. She was in town, and people were being really hostile, which you wouldn't expect from a Bjork show, right? And
Like, what do you mean hostile towards you?
no, to like other audience members. So there would be people like, everyone was high, like everyone's just like talking loudly, or there are people like they couldn't find their seats and they're like talking, and there's some people like, take it outside, motherfucker, and like
What?
And I'm just kind of like,
At a Bjork show?
right?
Isn't her audience mostly like in their 30s and 40s now too? Because Bjork is like 60.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know what a Bjork. I couldn't pick a Bjork fan out of.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what they're like.
I think they're just everyone. It's just like, I don't know. It's like maybe not like a Peter Frampton, but like a Kenny G type of like, yeah, I'm gonna go to a Kenny G show. It's like it's something you don't really want to miss. That's a weird example, but like
Yeah, it's like, all right.
I feel like Bjork sort of like bucket list stuff, but in my mind, I reverted to that kind of older brain of mine where I went, oh yeah, Bjork fans are really hostile. They're real angry. But then when I walked out, my thought was, no, everyone's just on edge. Like more than ever, we're just the way the world is today. Mm-hmm. There is this almost sometimes feels like a grand experiment of how far can you push people in like weird comfort, discomfort and comfort, and constantly things are this way now. No, now things are this way. And like, I don't know, who knows? And so like a weird thing is when we walked in, I probably won't put this in the episode because it's not really that
Most
interesting.
of this won't be in this episode.
It's fine. But so they make you show your vaccination card, at the show. So,
okay.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, here you go. And then when we go in there, we buy a beer and we're sitting watching the show, drinking a beer. And then partway through, I looked around and kind of noticed everyone's wearing their mask. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I should put my mask on. But I'm like, but wait, everyone here is vaccinated, or at least they should be. Or I am, so I'm fine.
You faked a card and you're good to go.
It's on my phone. It's real. But yeah, just having like that thought of like, that was the thing that kind of pushed me over. I'm like, oh, this is why we're all on edge, because these are a bunch of people who should feel safe, but we're being reminded that we're not safe and that you can die at any moment. And, if you smoke weed the wrong way and cough on somebody, like that guy going to the Texas chili parlor last night.
Just those chads that were going in, they just like go, go inside and then sit right behind us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if they didn't give us something, then the Texas Chili Parlor. Well, I know the Texas Chili Parlor gave me something.
I felt something this morning.
But you'll want to go back in 2 days anyway. because it's the amnesia aspect of it. But
the abusive relationship of Texas chili, of like, I can never do that again. And then like, hey, they're open.
yeah, that light's blinking.
What is that? Did we say? What have we talked about?
I don't know, man.
That was a weird. I couldn't land on something. I had something this morning and then I lost it.
It's like you don't have to land on anything,
No.
but I just want truth.
Yeah.
I want to.
What's your truth?
I don't. I'm searching for what's the raw germ, the raw seed that.
Do you feel like you're a Cinderella or a Rapunzel?
I feel like between the two, the only one I ever felt any kind of thing inside of myself where there was some visceral thing was Rapunzel, because it was, again, and this is my own thing, going back to Fortress, of being locked away like in a weird, like dystopian kind of. I remember being a kid reading Rapunzel and being like, oh my God, well, how she's just up there? Like, I kept thinking of all the practical things, like, where'd she go to the bathroom? What did she do? Like, it's just this thing of being trapped that really touched a nerve. And I guess, but luckily she had a bunch of conditioner or whatever, and her hair was fine. But
horse spit.
Yeah, whatever they put it in there, berry juice and shit. And but I don't know if I ever because the difference is what Cinderella is the pleaser that with the hope that you'll get something eventually, or you basically, it's a carrot on a stick.
Yeah, I looked at it more of like an abusive relationship, which
Right.
I had that moment with you and I recently where I finally set us up on some project tracking software, and like when I prefaced that I had done this thing, it was with the sound of like someone died or I killed somebody.
When you said you're like, I hate what I'm about to share with you, blah blah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck. I was like, what now? Like, because, well, I mean,
I invested it all in crypto.
The last time that you had that kind of tone, it was not the best, reveal of things, and so I was like, oh man, what the fuck happened? And then I was like, I signed us up for Monday.com. And I was like, okay. Yeah. I mean, that sucks, but yeah, we need that. God, it's the it was this PTSD.
It was definitely PTSD, and it was the Cinderella thing of, I remember for whatever reason having that desire, need to go out of my way to improve things, and like I need to make things better, and then it's like, no one asked you to, but I'm like, but I did it, and your reaction being like, oh, this is great, yeah, it's good enough, cool, okay.
Well, I'm trying to separate for the longest time, the old Aaron would have been like immediately scoffed at something like that, because my natural nature is to rebel against any kind of anything, pretty much.
I relate to that.
Yeah, which is
question everything.
And also just be, I don't know, I'm a bit of an ass, trying not to be, but like part of growing and being honest with yourself is going like, okay, I acknowledge this. Yes, this is a system. This is the man kind of thing here. Well, you can't say that anymore, but this is the man
person
here of structure and things you need to stay accountable and all this other stuff, and not being hostile towards things just because you feel like that's the personality you're supposed to have, or the I don't know that's the expectation that someone has of you. It's like, I'd rather be like, it's more interesting to be honest and raw and truthful with yourself and with others. And that's why it's great that we have Monday.com. But like, that's why I could have done the thing where.
Really?
Did it really go out?
Ooh. I shouldn't touch it.
Burn
my hand.
I was getting to a damn point.
That's fine. You can just do it in the dark. Careful not to burn yourself. What was your point about Monday.com? And what Monday.com's the best? I don't know.
My point is I was My personality has been influenced by all sorts of iconoclasts and whatever and things I've read and the Christopher Lamberts of the world. And I could have easily seen that thing and been like, fuck this. Like, what are we doing? You know, like,
Yeah.
But the honest side of me, even in a small thing like that, is like, no, this is good for the bigger thing that we need to do.
It was more just for me to be like, I'm good at keeping, or sorry, I'm going to say I'm good. I'm decent at keeping things in my head of like, all right, I got to do this. I'll make a checklist. And at some point when it gets overwhelming, I'm like, my brain could only handle so many things. And I forget things like, oh, we had tickets to go see Bjork on a Tuesday. I forgot. Oops. And then we rush out to go see a magnificent show. But it's like, yeah, at some point I have to just kind of give and be like, we're now not like we're overproducing, but I'm like, okay, things are going to fall through the cracks, which has happened with us where I'll be like, hey, so we're going to get this video up on Monday. And you're like, we sure are. And I'm like, who's we? And is it you or I don't know. Uh-huh. Yeah. And like, I even fucked that up with the Patreon video where I was like scheduled for 6 a.m. Gotcha. And then you text me at 7:30. Hey, I know you're still asleep, but, just let me know when that video goes live. I was like, it is live. No, it's not. And I look and I never hit save and I go, well, I'm not perfect. And I never will be. And this is still, there's just little things that they fall through the cracks. But tracking software will help. Keep me honest in some way. And I can track my expenses instead of when we go to the IRS later this year and go, I don't know.
And they go, I do. You get sentenced to Fortress. They'll be shoving fucking intestinators down our throat for not paying $200 in taxes.
Well, I was reading a thing that said like never use round numbers for your taxes as a immediate red flag.
Oh, like just zeros.
Yeah, or like I spent exactly $4,000 on gas, and they go, all right, we're gonna have a talk. It used to be that was always the fear. It was the Seinfeld's book, Sign Language, and he's talking about being audited. And now he has to go through a shoebox full of receipts and all this. Like, you buy everything with a credit card now, so it's like I can track everything I bought in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. Typically, like, I guess I'm not too afraid of getting audited. I'm just setting myself up. I just shouldn't.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Do it. Yeah,
fucking do it. Come on, pussy.
Come at me. Put me in Fortress.
Yeah.
It all comes back.
So what is? Did I miss what the Gretel version of a person is?
We never talked about Hansel or Gretel.
Rapunzel.
Rapunzel is the. When it's all related to narcissism. So it's the idea is like, who's your evil? I forget if she's a stepmother or she stole Rapunzel. I forget the exact. It's been a while since I've seen Tangled, but she, covets and holds Rapunzel prisoner and then makes her feel like the center of the universe because she's the center of their universe. And they sort of like project all their flaws onto them. But they hold them there, but they kind of put them in this abusive relationship of like, well, you're making me do this because I love you. And I think that's supposed to be more of like the parental figures that are sheltering.
Oh.
As opposed to like, I feel like more of my childhood was, hey, if you do this, you'll get it. Or like, we did it. And they go, yeah, but it wasn't good enough. Go to your room. You're like, wait, what?
What is the parent that gives you like a dirt bike to ride and a rifle and go have fun for the day?
Toy Story or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was neither in a tower or cleaning floors for three lesbians.
Maybe some childhoods cannot be put into a box. Well, because I had Weekend Dad too, where it was so like home was a lot of times felt like the prison system. Not it wasn't always prison. I mean, that's an extreme version, but like I had an unorthodox childhood of like sometimes it was sort of a mental abuse of like, hey, you kids are doing great. Why are you making me yell at you? And you're like, what is happening? Like or like, well, you're all doing chores now. And it's like, what did we do? And it's just because like something's going on in their life or whatever. And then hanging out with sort of like lackadaisical dad of like, I got you for the weekend. Here's $5. Go have fun at Rocky and Bullwinkle's Family Fun Center.
Jeez.
And like, I'm like, well, Mom doesn't let us watch Beavis and Butthead. He's like, I don't care. We can't watch Ren and Stimpy. Yeah, we've got that. Sure. I'm going to have a beer with my friends out back. You kids do whatever you want. If you see a cat, just ignore it. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll play Doom on the...
Definitely a Cinderella story.
Oh, but I mean, that was only on weekends. So it was like a taste of freedom of like, this is what my life could be like. Like, probably would have turned out a lot different had that been my life. Probably more interesting.
Mine was like, this is Mommy's friend, Mr. Bandito. And
he's in a band.
His middle name is One Percenter, and he's going to teach you how to play pool for money. Like that was the kind of thing that I, and I turned out fine.
The jury's still out.
Yeah.
I mean, your story has yet to be written.
The jury is literally,
Yeah, they're out to lunch.
Yeah.
Recess, they call it. Sorry. That's always fun. I was trying to remember that. This has nothing to do with any of this, but I forgot.
Nothing has anything to do with anything in this.
I was remembering how much structure was in my life and how much of it's ripped away. Like, just the extreme version of when you're in school. They're like, I don't know if yours was like this, but it's like, line up, go to lunch. It's almost like a prison sort of system. Sit down and eat, and then the principal stands at the top of the stage and like, I will now release you for recess based on which table is the quietest. And then they're like, that table, and then if someone fucks up, it's almost like prison justice.
Yeah,
it's like,
get out! Shut the fuck up!
You beat him out in the yard later because
I remember that stuff.
Yeah, because you didn't get kickball court, the kickball court because Terry wouldn't shut the fuck up, and I was like, and then today where it's like, Mom, need some Chipotle at my desk. It's like there is no recess after lunch. It's just.
I wonder if that, I'm sure kids still have that crazy, that structure like that. I mean, it's basically preparing you to be obedient, essentially. And it's, I mean, maybe there are, I definitely remember some kids where it was like, yeah, this is the best it's going to be for them because they're like, it's jail after this, but I remember even at that time, it felt so because I was also reading all the time. Like, this feels authoritarian, I was reading 1984 by the time I was 10, and so it was like, all this is vaguely familiar, a little meter, in the cafeteria that says we're being too loud or whatever. The programming they put on the TVs, like that channel. Did you ever have that channel that was Channel 1? And they'd put on this programming that would be like, here's... Sorry, my dog's attacking a dog next door.
It happens.
They have this propaganda channel.
No,
that
I didn't get that.
Yeah, I read some of the stuff. There was you'd have to watch it in the morning, and it would have it would talk about the news and stuff. It was like news for kids, but real world news that they kind of dumbed down. They're like, I don't know how they explain it. They'd be like, Russia is in an argument with the U.S., but it'll be all right. Kind of weird. Yeah. Huh. It was this weird shit. And then that channel would follow you around all day. And so he's really attacking you. Anyway, so it was basically just building this Nazi state in elementary through fucking high school.
Yeah, maybe that's Texas versus...
That's definitely Texas.
Suburb of LA,
but Texas influences all sorts of things.
Maybe. Ours was more, we didn't have, public broadcasting or whatever, but we had the power team come in. It was,
the people that ripped the Bibles in half?
Yeah. Well, except those phone books because they couldn't push religion on us.
They rip phone book, not Bibles.
Yeah. Well,
they pass out Bibles afterwards.
Yeah. Well, we find out later those guys were all on cocaine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But then...
And HGH.
And then it would be weird when they do the magazine drives and stuff. But the guy up there was it was clearly the fourth school he'd been to that day. He was a little sweaty. His
hands are bleeding.
Yeah. And similar to you, I remember questioning authority of why are we selling this guy's magazines? But if you sell a bunch of these, you'll get a cookie. And I was just I knew something was up. I was like, why don't you sell the magazines? Why are you making us go to your parents and just realizing the whole thing was kind of a scam? Mm-hmm. And just I don't know. It was I guess that's also the kind of world I was brought up in was just question everything. And everything's gonna, look at the deeper meaning of like when someone's asking you to do something like, and that I'm now the person who looks for the shorter line or goes where there's no line. But sometimes I get in line. I don't know. I ride that balance. Sometimes I put the mask on because everyone else is doing it, even though you don't have to. Mm-hmm. I don't know. My right eye is closing up.
My eyes are so dry.
Yeah. Well, does it look red?
No.
Okay. I keep scratching it, but I'm realizing it's really itchy. You have Benadryl?
No.
Maybe get Benadryl after this. And we'll let that light reset.
Jesus.
Or go buy a new bulb.
I guess.
I don't know.
No, I have another work light that I can put there that won't burn out.
Yeah, right. I gotta stop fucking touching my eye. Or need eye drops.
Maybe we talk about the metaverse trial after this.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. This would be the warm up. We shouldn't have had kolaches and donuts before.
My stomach hurts so bad right now. It's not even like after we're done with this. I'm just I need like to give me 15 minutes.
I'll leave you be.
Give me 15 minutes to just sit and see what my dog did to that other dog next door.
We'll be right back.
Welcome home, baby.
Shall I intestinate?
Just a moment longer, Zed. This is a fascinating dream. Quite instructive.